also tell my story. I'm also unemployed.
We can help you with the rest.
Are you on LinkedIn?
Yes, actually. And I'm networking. I've been doing my...
A lot better than what we've done.
But I have my sight on a particular job I'm working for, so I know exactly what I'm aiming. And it's not terribly entrepreneurial, but it's a lot of work. You know, Lee, like you, some time ago, my church asked me to take a volunteer position to work as a counselor, pastor, if you will, with my congregation. And
Social Security should take no part in deficit reduction negotiations. Social Security should take no part in deficit reduction negotiations.
That's your question? Okay, can I answer? Do I believe that Social Security should take no part in deficit reduction negotiations? Is that the question? And the answer is this. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid account for about half of federal spending. Just hold on. About half of federal spending. And if we are ultimately, not just this year, but over the coming decades, going to be able to balance our budget and not spend more than we take in, we have to make sure that the promises we make in Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare are promises we can keep. And there are various ways of doing that. One is we could raise taxes on people. That's not the way... Corporations are people, my friend. We can raise taxes on... Of course they are. Everything corporations earn ultimately goes to people. So, where do you think it goes? What? Whose pockets? Whose pockets? People's pockets. Okay, human beings, my friend. So number one, you can raise taxes. You can raise taxes. That's not the approach that I would take. Number two, you can make sure that the promises we make are promises that we can keep. And in my view, the areas that you have to consider are higher income people receiving less rapid growth in their benefits and their inflators. You don't agree with that? You want to give wealthier people bigger portion? That's your right. I think we should have what's known as progressive indexing. I think we also should consider a higher retirement age. Those are things that should be considered as part. That's my view. You may disagree with it. That's my view. But my view is we do not make promises we can't keep. You guys, I want to say this. I appreciate the chance to be with you. We got a few folks up front who got here early to make sure that they could make their voice heard. My guess is they won't be voting for me. That's fine. We have a lot of people running for office. They won't be voting for any of the Republicans. They can vote for President Obama. But you guys are going to be voting for the next president of the United States, a person who believes in America, a person who will balance our budget, a person who will not raise taxes, and I am that person. Thanks, you guys. Great to be with you.
Stop coddling the super rich. That's the message from billionaire Warren Buffett. That's the message he's sending to Washington. Buffett is arguing for a tax increase on the wealthy in the New York Times op-ed because he and his well-to-do pals can afford it. He writes, "My friends and I have been coddled long enough by a billionaire-friendly Congress. It's time for our government to get serious about shared sacrifice." Using his federal tax bill as an example, Buffett writes that the percentage he pays is lower than most. What I paid was only 17.4% of my taxable income. That's actually a lower percentage than was paid by any of the other 20 people in our office. Well, Republican presidential candidate and multimillionaire Mitt Romney thinks that kind of inequity is just fine. Here's his explanation as to why rich people end up paying less taxes.
Now you might say, well, yeah, but still, why not just go raise the taxes on the rich some more?
Well, I'll tell you that I read an article in the Boston Globe some time ago. It said the problem with the rich people is that many of them are smart.
So that's the problem with the poor in this country. According to the minister, they just aren't smart enough to figure out all these tax loopholes that he and his super rich benefit from at the expense of everyone else.
A woman who apparently is a member of the auto union, the UAW, asked Romney about his position on GM and comments he made about bankruptcy. Just roll it. We'll listen and watch together.
So my question is, how can you say that those people from your own state of Michigan, would have been better off under bankruptcy, where they would have really very likely lost their jobs, instead of where they are today, once again, the #1 auto company in the United States? I don't understand that.
Matt, we've been very patient. We need to get to the answer now.
Now let's get to the answer. The answer is this. Bankruptcy is not going under and losing jobs. The president ultimately did what I suggested, going through a managed bankruptcy process. I wrote an op-ed about this. I said, excuse me, it's my turn to talk. And if you want to talk afterwards, we can come chat afterwards. But we went through General Motors and Chrysler went through a managed bankruptcy exactly as I said back, I think it was in November. It took the president 5 or 6 months to come around to that.
You are running on those business credentials. In 2008, you said, and I'm quoting, "We should let Detroit go bankrupt." Today, though, the industry is clearly on the rebound. 115,000 jobs added. Money is being paid back. The president, of course, is in Ohio today, highlighting Chrysler. You also accused the president yesterday of making the recession worse. But based on what we've seen in the auto industry, weren't you wrong in this case? Wasn't it right for both the auto industry and for the American economy to help that industry?
Yeah, I think you're misunderstanding the word bankrupt. Bankruptcy, as you understand, is not liquidation of an enterprise. It's allowing an enterprise to go through the bankruptcy courts so that they can reorganize and come out stronger. And that's precisely what finally happened. When I wrote that piece, the auto industry was asking for a bailout. We were unwise just to send billions of dollars. Instead, finally, the president recognized I was right.
So you're saying the president
took the company, in the case of General Motors.
So you're saying the president took
the company finally went through bankruptcy, went through a managed bankruptcy, came out of bankruptcy, and now is recovering. So look, the right process for an enterprise in trouble is not to be given free money from the taxpayers with a bailout. It's instead to go through a bankruptcy process, reorganize their debts, reduce their cost, and come out stronger.
But the companies actually went through bankruptcy.
Feet.
But so the companies actually had to go through bankruptcy before that bailout.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. The headline you read, which is said, "Let Detroit go bankrupt," points out that those companies needed to go through bankruptcy to shed those costs. And the federal government put in, I think, $17 billion into those companies before they finally recognized, yeah, they need to go bankrupt, to go through that process so that they're able to get rid of their excess costs.
So then, just to be clear, so then are you saying that the president took your plan? I'm trying to follow here, because they did actually go through bankruptcy in 2009. You called the whole process of everything that was happening tragic. You said it was a sad circumstance for the country, but yet it's turned out fairly positive, a lot of folks would say, especially in Detroit.
Erica, I think you're misunderstanding. What I wrote early on was absolutely right. I said Why is it that we insist that people get a break only if they buy their insurance from their employer? And the problem with that model, by the way, is that in a setting, in today's economy where most people change jobs pretty frequently, I mean, what's the average? 3.5 years in some cases, people changing jobs. Well, that means they change jobs, they go to a new employer, and maybe it's a different insurance company. And so the insurance company doesn't have a lot of incentive to work with you over the years to keep you healthy, because they know they only got you 3, 4, 5 years. I want people to be able to own their own insurance if they wish to, and to buy it for themselves and perhaps keep it the rest of their life, and to choose among different policies offered from companies across the nation. I want individuals to have their own insurance. That means the insurance company will have an incentive to keep you healthy. It also means that if you don't like what they do, you can fire them. I like being able to fire people who provide services to me. If someone doesn't give me the good service I need, I want to say, that I'm going to go get somebody else to provide that service to me. And so that's one thing I change.
I'm in this race because I care about Americans. I'm not concerned about the very poor. We have a safety net there. If it needs a repair, I'll fix it. I'm not concerned about the very rich. They're doing just fine. I'm concerned about the very heart of America, the 95% of Americans who right now are struggling, and I'll continue to take that message across the nation.
All right, I know I said last question, but I got to ask you. You just said, I'm not concerned about the very poor because they have a safety net. And I think there are lots of very poor Americans who are struggling who would say, that sounds odd. Can you explain that?
Well, you had to finish the sentence, Soledad. I said, I'm not concerned about the very poor that have a safety net, but if it has holes in it, I will repair them.
Got it. Okay.
The challenge right now, we will hear from the Democrat Party the plight of the poor, and there's no question it's not good being poor, and we have a safety net to help those that are very poor. But my campaign is focused on middle-income Americans. My campaign, you can choose where to focus. You can focus on the rich. That's not my focus. You can focus on the very poor. That's not my focus. My focus is on middle-income Americans, retirees living on Social Security, people who can't find work, folks that have kids that are getting ready to go to college. These are the people who've been most badly hurt during the Obama years. We have a very ample safety net, and we can talk about whether it needs to be strengthened or whether there are holes in it, but we have food stamps, we have Medicaid, we have housing vouchers, we have programs to help the poor. But the middle-income Americans, they're the folks that are really struggling right now, and they need someone that can help.